Jeff Webb here for Got Blood Outdoors. Appears we had a bit of a snow last night, just a light one. It's a crisp 28 degrees this morning. The birds are chirping. It's quiet out. Everybody's still asleep. You know, 2011 was a great deer season for most of us at the joint. And I had a buddy of mine that killed a great big deer. When was the last time you saw a big deer? No, I'm not talking about a big deer. I'm talking about a big deer. Well, today we're going to show you one in a clip. A friend of mine named Walter Mitchell killed one with a bow this year, and that deer scored over 200 plus green. It's going to be at the Columbus Deer Expo here in a couple weeks. So you stay tuned. There's quite a story behind this deer, and we did a set down with everybody that was involved. And I know you're going to want to see the Mitchell buck. So stay tuned, because we're coming at you. Hello everybody, it's Jeff Webb from Got Blood Outdoors. We had a heck of a deer season in 2011. A lot of my buddies shot real good bucks. We're going to probably be doing two different videos. One we like called the Rack Roundup, and we're going to do this video right here. This is the Mitchell buck. This is Walt Mitchell I have next to me. How you doing, Walt?
All right.
I see you brought this monster in here on us, and we all thought we shot big bucks, and then Walt comes in and he just crushed us. I'm devastated. I was so tickled this year, and I saw this, and it never ceases to amaze me how big these animals can get. I remember the day that he shot this buck because Bentley, buddy of ours, Sean Bentley, was down there hunting with me, if you remember in our video, and he got a text, I believe from Brian Trout, saying that Mitchell had shot the big one. And I kind of looked at him and grinned and said, well, we'll see. And the story kind of gets convoluted after that, because at first he thought he had him, and then he thought he didn't have him. And we're going to turn it loose to Mitchell here now and kind of let him tell us what transpired that morning. But first, before we get started, Mitch, I want you to tell me, you had this deer green scored. You haven't had it scored yet. What was the official green score on this, do you know?
The official gross green score is 202 4/8.
Boys, you don't see those every day. No. Tell me about from the time you saw this deer, the day you shot him, right before you shot him, when you knew it was going to happen, he was coming. Tell me what was going through your mind.
What actually was going through my mind that day that I shot this deer was that I was going to shoot a really nice 8-point. I'd actually looked back in the woods, and I seen the two and here, and I seen a brow tine. That's really all I seen. I thought I had a very large 8-point, big heavy boned 8 coming out, and then he jumped the fence, and all this showed up. And I was stood up, I was standing in my stand, pretty confident about placing a shot on an 8-point that was going to come into a scrape that I made. And when he jumped the fence, I sat back down. Fairly intimidating on the hoof. Yeah, when he jumped the fence, it was the biggest deer that I'd ever seen.
Did you experience that buck fever? When you got ready to draw down on this monster, was there any shake, rattle, or roll in your bow there?
A lot.
I think everybody has that though, at one time or another it's going to get you.
At first, I think, when I drew on the deer, I was making high plate circles with my bow. It probably wasn't moving that much, but, very nervous, praying that God would let me make the ultimate shot, to end it quick for both of us, just a good clean harvest.
Right. Now from the moment of impact, when you heard that sound, and we've all heard it hit, and I think that's what gets you addicted. First time you hear it hit, go through. After you heard that sound.
Well, I knew that I'd hit, probably the largest deer that I ever would, have in front of me. And unfortunately, I hit a limb, as the arrow was in flight, and it actually entered, I'm thinking, partial guts and into the hind quarter. So
you immediately start analyzing that shot.
yeah, it was the highest high and the lowest low within a split second, you know, and
Now we're going to bring Brian on here in just a second, and I'm not going to tell you what Brian texted us in the field, because honestly I'm not real sure if I remember. I just remember him talking about the big one, and then later I remember him texting saying that you haven't found it yet.
yeah,
And that's when I looked at Sean Bentley and went, uh-oh. So,
there was a lot of uh-oh involved. You know, I think I called everyone in my phone, and I didn't really tell them, you know, what I'd actually shot. I just said it's big, it's not hit the best, and I need everyone to pray, you know.
yeah. Now, after you failed to find this deer, a time went by, an unimaginable amount of time in deer hunting, and we actually thought this deer was gone. Exactly how many days was that?
44 days.
44 days later, part 2 rolls around. And now we're going to bring Brian Trout out here. Brian was with him the day he found it, and if we're lucky, we're going to get them to do that man dance that they did together out here in the field, where they grab each other and stuff. All that good stuff. So, 44 days later, Brian Trout meets up with you. You guys are going back out to hunt again.
Yeah.
I can only imagine that right now you're in despair. You're thinking, how'd I lose him? And then it happens.
Yeah.
So take it from there, Mitch, and give me that little story you gave me, and please don't leave out the man dance. And hopefully we'll get you guys to do that for us.
I don't know that we'll repeat the dance because it was a one-off dance. We didn't really have that on tape, but yeah, Brian had called me, and yeah, I'd passed several bucks through gun season and stuff. I was just sort of a moping hunter, you know, depressed. I told this story probably 25, 30 times about this buck, and really didn't want to revisit the farm where I shot.
Right.
Brian had called, you know, I think we talked Christmas Day about going out, you know. So we meet up the next day and we go out, and I was actually a little sore on my hip. I fell asleep on the couch the night before and sore, and really didn't want to go, and especially not back to that stand. It was sort of like spit in the face, you know. So the limp started, you know. I started heading back, and I knew that he had beat me, you know, as far as getting to the stand. He was in his stand well before I was, and I'm just sort of moping along, and all of a sudden I see a rib cage, and you know what comes to mind when you see that is some poor guy did the same thing I did.
Right.
You know, he shot a deer and lost it. Well, at least I get to find one, you know. So as I walk closer, I noticed that, you know, there's racks sticking up 2 feet. At least out of the corner, and I started waving my hands, got excited, and sort of figured out that this was my deer, and I wasn't trying to screw up the hunt at first, you know, but
You had to get his attention.
yeah, and you know, I think
Because he forgot his phone.
Yeah.
Okay, so about break number 4, I'm watching Walt through my binoculars, and I see him start doing the wave to try to get my attention. I'm going, what the world is he doing? I said, I'm out here, I'm ready to go, man. What are you doing, guy? And I'm texting him, trying to figure out what the heck's going on, and he keeps doing it, and he's like, and next thing I know, I see a woof. And I was like, that's what he's doing.
Oh.
So by about that time, I was like, all right. So I took my backpack off, hung it up, left my bow on the rack. I left everything in the tree. So I start my way over to the field, and I was like, I don't care. I said, if that's what I think it is, I don't care if I hunt tonight or not. So I walk over there and see it, and I'm like, yeah, that's it. That's a memory, a picture in your mind that you will not get out of your head.
Exactly.
I mean, because
It's one of those Kodak moments.
yeah, that deer was framed in my head, and I can I can imagine the emotions that Walt was going through.
So I'm sure it's touching. You guys
Yeah.
embraced and did the man dance.
We had
all life was good.
some moments to where if it was actually seen by the public eye, it could have been ugly.
Oh no. So now you had caught sight of this deer on the day that he had shot.
Yeah, I watched the whole incident break down through my binoculars. I mean, I'm 400 yards away on the other end of a cornfield that we're hunting, and I seen this deer jump the fence, and I actually saw it with my naked eye first, and I'm like, holy crap! So I threw my binoculars up, and I'm looking at it. I'm going, that's a pig.
Did you realize it was this big?
No, I did not. I mean, I'm 400 yards away, and with the naked eye, I could see a nice, hefty, heavy horned rack. And then once I got the binoculars up, I was like, wow. I mean, it was stupid phenomenal, man. And then next thing you know, I see the deer kick and jump and take off, and I'm like, my heart sunk right there, because it's like, oh, he just done something and screwed something up, because a deer like this, they aren't stupid. They don't get this big just out of sheer spite and luck. And I was like, wow. I said, the opportunity that he just had just went to the tubes, man.
Flashback now to the moment you guys found this rack. When you first put your hands on that rack,
Oh my God.
did you know that he probably shot one of the bigger deer in Ohio this year?
Yeah, I mean,
Is that
Jeff.
the biggest one you've ever put your hands on?
Yes, that's the biggest deer that I've ever put my hands on. And Jeff, not to try to go back, but when we were out actually doing, after we had waited several hours, I mean, it was probably 4 to 5 hours that we had given this deer on the first initial wait. When we jumped this deer up, we were 10 to 8 yards away from it. And I tell you what, when this thing stood up, it looked like a friggin' moose coming out of the brush. And when he got my attention that day, that December day, there was no emotion in anything in the world that could have said this couldn't happen to a better guy, man. I mean, I mean, he took me out there to his place and gave me the opportunity to harvest big deer, and I had the opportunity and saw several big deer the couple times that we got to go out to this particular farm that this deer was harvested on. And just for him to find this and all the emotions to come to a whole for him, it was crazy phenomenal.
I mean, if that doesn't give you a sense of accomplishment,
So,
I don't know what.
I mean, if anything tells you, I mean, you can't really get an idea right now. I wish we had the actual bow that he took it with, but we've got some footage, some still pictures
I've got a picture we can
with his bow in the rack of the deer, an older Hoyt, 34-inch axle to axle Hoyt. The only thing sticking out of the rack is the cams. Outside spread is 32.5 inches, 29.5 inside spread. I mean, it's stupid big.
Oh, he's a monster. He's a monster. So now, are you planning on going back visiting this farm next year?
I think I'm going to take a year off from that farm.
Brian, how's that make you feel?
It doesn't bother me because I know there's big deer out there because I've
Right.
actually seen them with my own eyes. And like Walt said when we went out there, that there's only a couple people that hunt that farm that have permission to, and just to let them deer get to the size that they get out there. I mean, that doe that I harvested the day that he took this, it did not look and appear to be as big as it was, but it dressed out at 190 pounds.
I think that's important too in your deer management. You know, you have to target the big bucks and let the little ones walk. They don't get big if you don't let them walk.
No.
We're going to bring Jerry Everhart out here in a minute, and Jerry's going to speak about this rack and tell some things about deer. We consider him an authority on this. I know he studied a long time just from talking to Mitchell.
He's got more
Real
experience in
fond
the
of it.
field than I have living.
But if Jerry says this is an exceptional deer, then I know that this is something that needs to go on YouTube.
Yes.
This deer is going to be at the Deer Expo in Columbus next month.
Yep.
So
Third
anybody
weekend in
wants to
March.
see it can roll right up there and get a look at the Mitchell buck. It's going to be there getting scored. And there'll be a lot going on there. I don't know, are you going to try to make it out to
Yeah.
Deer Expo? So I know
I'll be
Mitchell's
there.
going to be there. I think Jerry might try to show up. I'm definitely going to be there. I'm looking for this deer, I'm looking for Byron Ferguson, some other people to talk to, so I can't wait. But we thank you for coming out here and getting on this with us. This is Brian Trout of Athens Bows. He's a heck of a deer hunter. All of these guys that you're going to see are. They study the deer and they only take what they think is necessary. We've got Jerry Everhart with us today. This guy's made it a lifelong pursuit to study deer. We consider him an authority. He's got some of the biggest racks I've ever seen in my life on his wall. He's a specialist as far as we're concerned in the rut, the time phases, and he just knows a lot about measurements. He used to do that, and he can tell us a lot about racks and deer in general. Jerry, what did you think the first time you laid eyes on this deer? What went through your mind?
Well, first thing that I thought when I laid eyes on the deer was, what's our chances of recovering this buck? Unlike what you might think, that's the first thing that came into mind. Second thing came into mind was, he's big. He's big. It's just like Brian said, the buck came up not more than 10, 8 yards from us. He's looking away, and we're looking right down his back. So he's not looking at us. So we're seeing that buck from this back side. So what I saw then, the second thing I thought was, he is a huge, wide, big rack. I also saw the split G2s, and it ran through my mind that this buck is big. He'll score big. It'd be better if he didn't have the split G2s as far as deductions are concerned.
Exactly.
But who cares when they get this big,
Exactly.
right? So I think my comment was, he's a monster. Isn't that what I said?
Yeah.
I said he's a monster. Well, I said this is great. But it really goes back farther than that. Walt and I met in church a few weeks earlier, and we shared some cordial information, and he stopped by the house to see me. And we talked a lot about hunting and hunting big bucks. I'm not against anyone taking smaller bucks, except that I believe if you're going to take a buck, try to wait till they get older, because like you said, let them grow. That's mine, that's personal. So we talked a lot about hunting big bucks, Walt and I did, and I tried to share with him what I knew about hunting large bucks. So Walt had been in touch with me all that week or week before. We talked about his events and what was taking place. And he was doing it right. I mean, he had some good opportunities even before he shot this buck in a couple, 3 days before that. So I was pleased that he had a chance to shoot at something like this.
I think that people, when they see these deer, to get a little better concept of how big they are, Jerry, and this is a large deer. I mean, his rack, like it says, 30 something inches wide. I've got a couple racks here. I've got one that's a really nice 10. And I think anybody would have probably shot this rack, Jerry. I mean, that's a nice deer. But when you look at the size of this deer in comparison with this deer, you can tell you're talking about two different critters right here.
Completely two different animals. We classify bucks sometimes as big bucks and huge bucks. Well, there's no question anyone would be proud to take this buck, because with a bow, especially that's in the Pope and Young range, I think it's pretty close to, but I don't know, but I guess it'd be 125 to 130 anyway, and so it'd make the record books, and anything that makes the record books with a bow and arrow, as far as I'm concerned, is a trophy. So that's a real trophy. So yeah, it is. But you can, in comparison,
Oh, yes.
you can see there's a huge difference between this buck
That-
and the one Walt killed.
This one fits inside of the
Inside
other
it,
rack.
yes.
Yes.
Right. So there is a big difference. You know, there's no question about that.
What do you think is the most unusual aspect about this rack, Jerry?
The width, on how wide that rack is, it's very, a lot of inside spread, huge inside spread, a lot of inside.
What did you age the deer at? I mean, did you make a guesstimation, or?
I've tried that a lot, and sometimes I'm right and sometimes I'm wrong, because fortunately, you can have them aged. So
Right.
I've had some of my bucks checked, the teeth checked for
Right.
age. And usually I get to where I can get within a year, year and a half. I don't know, I would guess him in the at least 4.5, 5.5 range. But I can say for sure, I looked at these teeth when we caped him, and I'd guess him to be 5.5 maybe.
Right.
He could get bigger, but who's going to let him?
Yeah.
Not if he gets a chance.
When you shot this deer, you remember that day, was Jerry pretty much telling you, hey, you need to be in the woods at this time, you need to be in the woods at this time? I know he's really studied the rut. He is down on this rut cycle like nobody's tomorrow. Did you feel like you had missed the prime opportunity already?
No. Jerry's actually done some podcast work through the Hunt Fish Journal, and I have like an hour and 10-minute drive to work. So not only was I able to read the literature that he'd put in some publications, but also listening to the Hunt Fish Journal from the year before. You know that, and knowing that the year before, Jerry pretty much predicted within about a 12-hour window of when this chase phase was really going to kick off, when these mature deer were going to be coming to these scrapes during daylight hours, you know. And the good thing about where he, you know, who he hooked up with, and the people that run the podcast, they also have a bow shop. So they interviewed Jerry a week to 2 weeks prior to the day he says what's going to happen. This guy at this bow shop takes pictures of all the big bucks. Well, he takes pictures of all the bucks that come in.
Right.
So when you've got him on a previous show, 2 weeks out, saying, you know, this is when you need to be in the woods, and then you compare that to
With
all
all
the
the bucks.
pictures,
That validates
boom, something's
his
making
research.
sense.
That's
You
right.
know, and then when you view Jerry's trophy room, which
I've seen the pictures. Yeah,
maybe we could have you post some as
absolutely.
well. But I mean, just the success that Jerry's had.
Well, I know
You
when I met him today, I made a comment about I think these big bucks are really nocturnal, and that's why a lot of people don't see them. And Jerry, you tend to have about the same opinion there, didn't you? Thought
Absolutely.
that they were pretty nocturnal.
There's no question they are. I mean, I'm not a hunter over cameras, trail cameras. I don't hunt over trail cameras. I use trail cameras to look at deer movement and activity, usually over food plots and so forth. So I learned a lot from the trail cameras. I learned a lot from the trail cameras about nocturnal activity that I suspected, because I've kept data for 30, 40 years of bow hunting. I keep a log book, it's probably about that thick now, of everything I see, when I see them, how big they are, the date, the time, the temperature, and all that data. I tried to correlate many years ago, so I finally achieved some of that by keeping all that information and data. But the one thing I did find out, the only time I saw big bucks was at certain key times of the year. So it wasn't too hard for me to figure, yes, these guys are there.
Yeah.
So your trail cameras will tell you,
Right.
there's big bucks everywhere. I think Walt said, no, where he was hunting, he's going to skip that and maybe let those grow for a year and so forth. That's a good idea. The fact of it is, I'm going to tell you, there are big bucks everywhere.
You know, I'd never seen deer, you know, 150, you know, 200 in bow range before. You know, I'd seen them out in the middle of fields, but seeing a deer 200 yards away and then having one in your lap, that whole buck fever and the songs that go with it and everything, it's very true. You know, there's no doubt. And you know, it would take someone getting the opportunity. You know, you shot big deer. Jerry shot big deer. You know, several of the guys here shot really good deer. You know, when you have something like this step out in front of you, and this is your passion, this is this is my Super Bowl right here.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
that's
You just
it
got
for
the
me.
ring,
I'm
man.
not a professional athlete.
Yeah.
I'm a bow hunter, and when you get something in front of you like this, you know, when you join this club, Boone and Crockett, you know, that's a joke in most circles. You know,
Yeah.
I'm going to get a booner this year.
Right.
When you actually do that, this thing sits above my bed.
Oh.
I look at it, you know, I wake up to it, you know.
Jerry, do you feel like you coached him right? Do you feel like you've helped him out a little bit here? And
I wouldn't.
we ain't created a monster.
I wouldn't. No. The monster was there.
Yeah.
The monster was there. I've shared some information with quite a few people over the years. It's not that I try to keep what information I have. I'm not saying that I'm the expert, the state expert, or the
Right.
world expert on deer. That's not the case. I just found out that Walt believed that there was a little bit more to hunting big bucks, and he took it serious.
Yes.
And I've had a couple other people that have done the same thing, and probably only 3 that I know of. And so they all do pretty well at it. Whenever you have something in front of you like this buck, you don't want to think it's the only one. It's not. And like I said, I've seen lots of good big bucks. I mean, this isn't the biggest buck.
Right.
It may not be the biggest buck he'll ever get a chance to shoot. I mean, you may think it is because no one shoots them, but they're there.
All right, you all. This about concludes our interview with Walt Mitchell on the Big Mitchell buck. I'd like to thank Walt for bringing this deer out here, letting you guys see it, give you something to aspire to, and make your mouth water just a little bit. I'd like to thank Jerry Everhart for coming out. Jerry's really enlightened me, and we're definitely going to be talking with Jerry in the future. This guy probably forgot more about deer hunting than we'll ever learn. I'd like to thank Brian Trout for coming out. If you want to see this deer in person, come up to Columbus, Ohio on this Deer Expo. It's the middle of March. Do we have a date on that? 17th, 18th, 19th?
16th, 17th, and 18th.
There you go. And they'll probably both be up there. The deer will be there. There's going to be a lot of greats there. Byron Ferguson, a lot of people pushing their products. It'll be fun if you're an outdoorsman. So get out in the woods. If you want to kill one like this, you're going to have to do your homework. But the important thing is to get out in the woods and learn about it. And it's good to eat too. We'll catch you later. Stay tuned on us. We're always going to be shooting some more video. Got Blood Outdoors. Got one coming up called Rack Roundup. We'll see you there. Check your arrow. You got blood?
It just looks unreal, doesn't it?
Why don't we get all of us in here?
Hey, come on in,
Okay, you guys get in here. We'll get all 4 of us in
Lean
here.
down again, Walt.
Get Jerry in here.
Right there.
This just proves
That's
that we
it.
know this
That's good.
superstar hunter.
That's right. Everybody, we all know this superstar.
When he
here
makes
now.
it big, you can't say you don't know us.
Yeah.
This
No intention, fellas.
Pro Shop.
Get another one on this
I
side.
just hope we can all be friends when I kill one of them next year.
Okay.
Because
You
I
almost
will
did this year.
smoke one of them.
There we go.
Are we good?
Everybody in?
Yeah, tighten up a little bit. Perfect. You want to do your got blood?
Got Blood Outdoors.
Nice.